Hi there. Is it actually possible to earn a full-time living as a composer going forward into 2026? Well, everyone tells you to follow your passion and follow your dreams, and it's a great lifestyle, but does it pay the bills? Is it sustainable? And has the game changed from maybe even 5 years ago? We'll look at all of those things in this video. Hi, my name's Andrew. I am a full-time composer. I have been doing this. I'm just about to start year 8 of my journey. And I would say that I've been earning a full-time income now for 3, if not 4 years. I primarily write for production music libraries and music for media, and I'm here to help you answer your questions about whether you too could write full-time as a composer in 2026. So first of all, what on earth does a full-time salary or a full-time income or a full-time commitment look like as a composer? Well, let's talk about numbers first of all. In the UK, apparently the national average wage is about £40,000. Can you live on £40,000? Well, that depends on where you live in the country, what your commitments are, whether you are single, whether you are in a partnership, if your partner earns less or more. There's so many variable factors in that. And I think the really important thing is to first of all define what is a full-time income for you. Some people will have far more outgoings than others. It might be possible to live full-time, to work full-time and to downsize. That might be a thing, but you've got to sort of work out where the parameter is for you yourself and define what a full-time income or what a full-time job is for you. Again, well, it will vary. I'm thinking about the UK, but there could be people watching this worldwide, I suppose, and it will be very, very different in different parts of the world. Composer income apparently varies, and I've got a dollar quote on this, from about $37,000 up to $115 or even up to $150,000 is what it said on my research. I don't believe that. I think it's probably higher than that, and it's immensely variable. What I do need to say is that it is also, no matter what you do, very, very volatile. Unless you are one of the absolute handfuls of composers that have a full-time position, potentially in like a game company, for example, though they are getting incredibly rare, where they have an in-house composer that is salaried. That's the only instance that I can think of where you're likely to get a salaried role actually writing music. There probably are others, but they are very, very few and far between. So you are looking at being a freelancer. And being a freelancer means that you are in the realms of feast and famine. Some months you will earn a lot of money, other months you may earn nothing, literally nothing. And it's very difficult not to overspend when you've got the money and not to be like, sort of panicking when you don't have the money. And the key is to eke it out and to save and spend a little bit at a time. And most importantly, to look at, rather than looking at your income on a monthly basis, which is sort of what we're taught to do, because most people have a salaried wage that comes in every month, or a lot of people do. To look at it on a yearly basis. Okay, so this year I earned this amount, rather than looking at a monthly figure. However, in 2026, I think there's a bit of a change. I think probably the last few years, and it will become more apparent in 2026, is if you like, the hierarchy of composers that are earning a living. I think previously we had what you might call hobbyist composers, and then you had, I guess, the middle classes, if you want to put it like that, and then the sort of upper class elite of composers that are working at a really, really high level. I think that the hobbyist composers will obviously keep going. I think the upper classes will be absolutely fine, but I think in 2026, particularly to AI and the saturation of the market to a certain extent, that middle sphere, that middle range, I think people will really, really struggle, which makes it quite difficult if you are what you might call a hobbyist composer at the moment to make that leap into that upper level. You have to go through the middle classes, if you like, in terms of building your skills, building your production value, building a network, building your business, building yourself as a composer. But it means that actually, as you're progressing through that middle rank, the actual opportunities for earning, I think, will be diminishing, and it'll be those of us, he said, hopefully including himself, in the top rank, sort of creating really, really high quality music that will survive. Okay, so where do composers earn money from? Well, using myself as an example, so I essentially write for production music libraries, which means that my music, most of my income comes from royalties. I mean, the bulk of it comes from royalties. This means that my music is chosen for a TV show. Every time a TV show is aired, I get a tiny little bit of money, and that's a sort of snowball effect that increases over time. And 70–80%, I guess, of my income comes from that regular quarterly royalty check that I get from my PRO. I also get some money from sync fees, which is a sort of one-time fee that's paid when a track is used. It's paid to the library and I get half of it, generally speaking. I get a tiny little bit of stuff through upfront fees being paid for a piece of music up front, if that makes sense, but that is a tiny amount. So royalties is my big income stream, but that's primarily because I work with production music libraries. The other main income stream for composers is what you might call custom scoring or media music, which means writing stuff on spec for everything from films, TV, to adverts, to jingles, and wherever you might want a piece of music, basically. But it's done on spec and it's a one-off payment. Generally speaking, there aren't royalties included in that. And it's a different sort of ball game in terms of writing to demand, if that makes sense, writing to brief, writing sort of within the confines of time and space that a specific client particularly wants. For me at the moment, that is a small part of my income, but something that I'm actually working on increasing over the next few years. I started by setting my foundation in production music and then moved into media music after. I will do a video on the differences between the two and the pros and cons in the future, and I will try and remember to link it somewhere here or here. The other thing also worth talking about, particularly in 2026, is the amount of composers that are doing what you might call a side hustle, be that mentoring. Actually, I do a little bit of mentoring. Again, it's a tiny amount of my income, but but all of the things apart from royalties are very, very small for me. But it's perfectly possible to mentor other composers. It's perfectly possible to sell your services as a mix engineer or a master engineer, or as an arranger, orchestrator, do instrumental lessons. You know, there's 101 different sort of side hustly type things that actually a lot, if not most, composers do as well to supplement their income, and also just to make a bit of variety from the sitting in front of the computer writing music on your own sort of scenario. It's really, really important. There is possibly a bit of snobbery involved in people that do things on the side that you're not. It's always the same, isn't it? Not a proper composer. If you still have to do that, it's complete rubbish, utter rubbish. I think in 2026 we need to think of ourselves as holistically as musicians, with a number of different strings to our bows, and I think the more flexible we can be and the more accommodating of different avenue streams, the more successful we are likely to be. So where are we with all of this in 2026? Well, sync fees, so royalty fees, if you like, apparently haven't really moved with inflation and aren't going up particularly, even though there is a massive amount of music needed in the massive amount of media that is being produced. There are a massive amount of composers wanting a slice of the pie, and I think that competition has always been there, but is particularly in that middle ground, is particularly fierce at the moment. And of course, there's the ongoing threat, if you like, of AI. Again, meaning that the lower and mid, in my opinion, part of the market is at risk. However, I think with any profession or anything that is great to do, there is always going to be competition. The competition is always going to be fierce to do something that drives people, that people love. I mean, it just validates it as being a great career. You know, if there wasn't any competition, you think, okay, well, maybe this is a bit rubbish. But no, there is fierce competition. But I think that's a good thing. It helps. It drives up the standard. It pushes you to really, really create in as much, you know, sort of high quality as possible. I think it's really, really important. So the competition thing is always going to be there. We don't know anything about AI at the moment, even 2026. I think it's having some effects, possibly in the lower part of the market. I honestly, at this stage, at the beginning of 26, don't think I've seen any impact of AI on my earnings. I might be wrong. All I can say is that just coming into year 8 of production music composing, year on year, my earnings are going up at the moment. And there's no guarantee that's going to continue. It may change. But as the market is now, if it stays as it is now, I think, yes, 2026 is a great year to be starting or to be earning a full-time living as a composer. It's totally, totally possible. There are some caveats. One of those is that if you're starting out now at the beginning of 2026, you're not going to earn any money. It's just not, you know, the chances of landing a really big sync placement, landing a well-paying film or TV scoring job from scratch it's possible, but it's highly, highly unlikely. Whether you go down the production music route or the media custom score writing route, in both, you need to create connections. In both, you need to learn how the market works. In both, you need to up your skills. But most importantly, particularly in production music, the delay between putting your music in a library and ever getting paid for it is as long as a piece of string. It can be immediate. It's more likely to be 2 years. The chances of you earning much more than beer money, really, in the first year, 2, 3, it nearly took me 4 or 5 years, is quite remote. So you do need to have a sort of plan B, I think, in my opinion. So my answer in conclusion is yes, it's absolutely possible to earn a full-time income in 2026 as a full-time composer. That's exactly what I am expecting to do in 2026. And I'm a very average production music composer with 7 years experience now. I'm just going into year 8. So, you know, it is attainable, it is doable. However, as I say, the caveat of the time delay, the fact that I'm writing 100 tracks a week, 100 tracks a week, that'd be amazing, 100 tracks a year to put into music libraries, the quantity that you need to put forward is pretty huge. And also the amount of time I put into networking and looking for opportunities as well. You know, this is a slow burn and it will take time. So I hope that's been really, really helpful. Are you motivated to do this? Put something in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking, if you're thinking of taking the plunge and starting composing in 2026. I will put a link to here, probably at the end of this video, to the video when I've done it, about whether you should possibly consider doing production music or whether you should go into media music, or media and custom music, because those are the two main spheres, really, the big sort of division. And hopefully that video will answer your questions on that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was really useful, and I hope to see you again in another video soon. Bye-bye.